Now, I want to talk right up front about violence and crime in Brazil because you may be interested in coming to Brazil, but you may be a bit concerned about doing so, which is understandable because if you read online, you watch the news, you could easily get the idea that it's a war in the streets down here, and it's just not so. There is crime here. There is violent crime. But one thing that you need to understand is that it's largely localized. And by that I mean it's not exclusively in the favelas, but it's mainly in the favelas. And now I'll also hasten to say that not all favelas are dangerous. I've been in many and I've never had a single incident in any of those visits. I mean, dozens of visits. But most crime does tend to be in the favelas where drug gangs may rule. There may be a limited police presence. And so one thing I'd say is if you want to lessen your chances of being a victim, don't go into favela unless you have a guide, somebody who lives there or knows the favela well. Now, at the same time, I mean, if you can find somebody to be your guide, it's a wonderful experience to go into one, but don't go in on your own. The other thing to understand about crime in Brazil, in contrast, say, to in the U.S., it's what my friend Cristiano Nogueira, who wrote Rio for Partiers, called rational crime. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's driven by need for money. You have a lot of poor, uneducated people in Brazil who don't have a lot of opportunities, and so they turn to crime. Very often it's petty theft on the beach. Theft of cell phones is actually the biggest crime here in Brazil. You have, and of course, the drugs, right? But there's not as much of just the random shootings, that you would find, for example, in the U.S. So it's actually easier if you're kind of keep your wits about you I think, to avoid crime in Brazil than it is in the U.S. I'm from the U.S. and I had my issues there, including having a gun pointed at my head from about 1.5 feet away in a case of mistaken identity. So it's kind of fortunate that I'm sitting here making this film for you because I almost didn't come through that situation. I've never experienced anything like that in Brazil. Again, I don't want to sugarcoat this. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, there is no crime here. But it really depends on where you go. Also, certain cities have reputations for crime. Others are pretty safe. I happen to be right now in a city in the Northeast called João Pessoa, 700, 800,000. It's a very nice little city and really pretty safe. I mean, you don't want to do anything stupid, like walk around flashing jewelry, walking around alone at night, in bad areas. But it's a pretty safe little city. On the other hand, a couple hours away from here, Recife, a larger city, also a state capital here, I wouldn't go there. I had no desire to go there. And it's pretty well known by Brazilians what are the safe cities, which are the more dangerous cities, which are the safer areas within those cities. So as long as you do your homework a little bit, talk to Brazilians, get online, get on forums, get on chat, send me a message, you can find areas down here that are really quite safe. Beyond that, it's really a lot of common sense, isn't it? It's the same as when you travel anywhere else. Don't wear flashy jewelry. Don't wear a fancy watch. I mentioned cell phones. If you need to use your cell phone, better not to do it on the street. All you need to do is step into a shop to make your phone call, or even a doorway. Anything that gets you off the street, because one of the favorite ways to steal cell phones is you'll have two young guys on a motorbike, one driving, one behind, snatching, right? And they'll just come up, snatch, and they're gone. So don't give them an opportunity. But really, if you use a little common sense, watch where you're going. Don't walk alone after dark. The usual stuff. I really don't think you have a great deal to worry about. I have to give disclaimers. I guess your mileage may vary, your experiences will vary, but I've been living down in Brazil for almost 11 years, and the worst experiences I've had was a little petty theft from my room when I was renting a room from a woman and her teenage daughter who pilfered my room, and a couple of shouting matches with homeless people on the street who I thought were a little too persistent about asking for money. That's it. Is there crime in Brazil? Is there violence? Yes. Do you need to worry about it? I don't think much more than you would anywhere else. Just use some common sense.